Hale, did you realize that you are going to be, no matter what you say or do, the most anticipated and celebrated guest of the week? It's recruiting season, man. You've got the scoop. I could give away $1 million and they'd say, well, I just want to hear what Hale has to say about Carolina football. So the show, the lights, the stage, you're on it, man.
You've given me some really good introductions over the years, and that one might be the best one. So thank you.
Well, you're welcome.
You start tossing around $1 million like that, that's pretty serious.
Well, people, there's probably some fans out there, I would imagine, not just in the great state of South Carolina, but all across the land, especially in the SEC, who, if you offered them life-changing money or the best or the top recruit in the country, they'd say, give me the top recruit in the country.
Well, I'm taking the money, so I don't want anyone to get that twisted with me.
Yeah. That ain't going to be me, man.
No, sir.
You can have him. Mm-hmm. I'm taking the cash, and of course $1 million didn't go as far as it used to. That's for dang sure.
I was going to say, do we have to pay taxes on this $1 million? How are we getting around that?
Not in Florida. If you're in California or in New York, you have to give them the money back.
You actually have to pay them for all of that money, I would think.
In California or New York, it's like the Nigerian email scam. You know what I mean? I tell you what, you give me $1 million, and then I'll give you $5 million. Oh, got it. That's kind of how it works in those places, from what I understand. All right, man. It has been busy. If you don't mind, who has decision dates that are coming up soon?
See, I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. So that was literally the last thing I was looking at before that glowing introduction. So let me try to get this off the top of my head. I'm definitely going to forget somebody. So folks in the chat box,
okay,
I'm sure you're ready. Desmond Green is tomorrow, the offensive lineman from Timberland High School. He's first up on the schedule, and I only mention him because he's taken an official visit to South Carolina and been a guy they've been recruiting for a while, but don't think it's going to be Carolina. So he's up first tomorrow, I believe.
Do you have a hunch of who it may be?
I think it's going to be Florida, but that's an educated guess on my part.
Okay.
I believe the next guy up on the schedule is PJ Dean, who is June the 30th. I believe that's Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a Carolina-Georgia battle with Ohio State in the top 3, but it's a Carolina-Georgia battle. We'll see how that goes. Carolina's seems to be in a good spot coming off the official visit that he had the first weekend of June, or the one that started May 30th, that Friday. And then of course, he came back for the O-line, D-line camp. Tony Morrell reported on the Big Spur 2 days ago that he reported some good things for Carolina. So we'll see if that plays out here next week. After that, I believe that's next up would be Noah Clark, defensive lineman from Durham, who, again, took an official visit like Dean, then was back. That it was for that same camp date in Columbia last week. He was watching. Dean was working out. Clark was just watching his teammates. They're hanging out as an unofficial visitor. And it's been like NC State and a handful of others, really kind of a South Carolina. I don't have to explain that one to anybody watching this program. So South Carolina and NC State, and I think South Carolina has been in a good spot for a while. There was first offer, Travian Robertson. That's like been his guy since day one.
Okay.
Feel good about that one. After Clark, I believe July 4th is Travis Johnson, the receiver from Virginia, who took an official visit. He's been to Michigan and Penn State, Ohio State. There's a lot of folks out there who believe it's Michigan. I tend to probably think that'll be the case. So after Johnson would be, I believe, July 9th with Joel Combe. I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce his last name. The DB from the Atlanta area took an official visit. He's been on campus as an unofficial visitor. He's also been like Tennessee, Missouri, Wisconsin. South Carolina's been like really in the mix there since offering earlier this spring. I would think it's kind of between Carolina and Tennessee for him. Then after that, I believe July 11th, I think I'm still on track there, is Samari Matthews, pretty much South Carolina or Texas. We've talked about him probably for many hours all total on this program over the years. Obviously, big time target for South Carolina. So yeah, I'm running out of steam. I think that's everyone. There's also on the Big Spur, if you find the football recruiting tab and you see scheduled commitments, I've got everybody in the country on that tab, and yeah, there might be one or two other South Carolina guys on there who I can't think of right this moment.
Okay, so let's start with Samari Matthews. He's the last one that you mentioned, but seemingly right now the furthest one away. There were some reports. Do we call them reports? I don't know. Hale in the last few days that have kind of, what do we even call that? Crystal balled or picked or whatever, that he might end up going to play for the Longhorns in Austin. I don't think any of that had anything to do with you. I think these were national analysts. Yeah. How did you read that?
Yeah, we can call them predictions. I mean, they're branded separately, different ways by 24/7 and On3, but predictions, and that's what they are. I think for the most part, usually that's what they are. And I think some people get really caught up in the moment when they see whatever logo next to whatever name. A lot of people have it in their heads, and sometimes it can be this way, but again, not always. But it's not like a guarantee that a guy is going to Texas when a certain national reporter puts Texas out there. And granted, right, like and Steve Wiltfong is who I'm alluding to, and he's obviously very respected and someone who I think a lot of and have a good relationship with. So I'm not crapping on Steve Wiltfong. It's a prediction based on whatever he's hearing. I don't think that Samari Matthews has told anybody where he's committing yet, because I don't think he's even settled on that himself. So Carolina felt really good coming out of his official visit, Samari's official visit last weekend. So we will see. I mean, I think the biggest change with him is he was originally scheduled for August 10th for his announcement, and then earlier this week he moved it up to July the 11th. So maybe he does in his mind have a decision made. I don't know. Like that's something probably only he could tell you. But I certainly don't think I know he hasn't told anyone at Carolina what he's doing for sure. Like so I don't think he's told anyone at Texas either. So again, long-winded answer to say prediction. That's what these things are, and people need to keep in mind when they either freak out in a good way or a bad way about whatever predictions are made.
Yeah, I Hale, certainly don't have near the context you have on any of these guys, but I continue to kind of look at this thing because you do feel like it's South Carolina or Texas, right? That seems to be kind of where it's trending.
Yep.
I would say, not that it doesn't happen, but more times than not, I think last time you were on, we talked about the fact that he's from basically Lake Norman, Cornelius, which is about an hour and a half north of Columbia. And more times than not, these kids tend to kind of end up a little bit closer to where they're from. I'm not saying he will or he won't, but if you go by, gut instinct paired with how this has kind of happened over the years, oftentimes, I mean, why do you think that, not you, I'm just on in general, why do people think that, like, when there's a kid in Alabama, that it's so hard to get him out of Alabama? We're going to get to that here in a minute. Or a kid in Texas, like, you might lure him away, and then after a year or two, he's gone and he goes back home, or whatever the case is. Like, it generally is harder to get those guys and keep those guys. On top of all that, as you've pointed out, again, I'm not trying to paint like some rosy picture for the Gamecocks, but what I'm saying is to offset some of the national predictions. These are things you've already pointed out before. The relationships he has with the staff in South Carolina, with some of the players that are coming into South Carolina, and has had those relationships for a long time. It's hard to beat that, and especially when you've got a program that's in pretty good standing. And the Gamecocks do. I mean, they're a top 15 national team right now in college football. So, if it doesn't work out for this kid and he ends up going to Texas, I guess you just kind of tip your hat. But I don't know how they're not either leading this thing or right smack dab in the thick of it. I'm not so sure that I agree with you. I'm not so sure that I agree with anybody who is going to put out a prediction for Texas. Not just yet. I don't think we're there. So we'll see. But he's a big one.
Yeah, he's like you said, he's from the Charlotte area. He's been to Carolina probably upwards of 15 times. Texas offered in like February, I guess it was, and he took an unofficial visit at some point in the spring, like March or April, then did the official. Took an unofficial for spring practice or whatever, and official earlier this month. So I just, generally speaking, you tend to think that a guy is going to probably want to play closer to home, like at a spot where his mom and dad and sister and whoever else can literally drive down and drive back home in the same day watching him play. Or I do know there is a direct flight from Charlotte to Austin. I've been on it a couple times. So it's a nice flight. It's very quick. It's all those things. So but there's a pretty significant difference there regionally that by and large, or I shouldn't say by and large, but generally you're going to think the team that has that regional advantage has the advantage in maybe getting the guy.
Which airline is that?
What is it? I think it's American. I think
American?
It's American.
I was about to say. So do we need to call? Who do we need to call? Do we need to get Usher to get somebody at American Airlines to do away with that direct flight? Like they need to the only flight there lays over in Atlanta for 3 hours, and then you never know what's going to happen. Like we need to find a way to make this more difficult, right? I'm just kidding, dude.
Or you have to connect through CAE, Charlotte to Columbia, right, then to Austin,
or connect in New York or something like that, or like DC. Charlotte's airport's terrible. DC, they all suck. All right, so Carolina will work on canceling airlines out of Charlotte to keep kids home. Okay, let's talk about Landon Duckworth. Everybody wants to talk about him, so we'll do that. What did you? He was on campus unofficially, right? And guess we're getting closer and closer. Based on the last time you were on, which was about a week ago, how do you feel today? Do you feel the same, better, worse?
The same, and he's been really quiet since then. He's usually been pretty open with various members of the media, myself included, and folks at other networks. And he hasn't, from what I've seen, he hadn't talked to anybody since the visit. So interpret that however you will. I don't know. Maybe he's just kind of in decision-making mode and trying to just ponder his two choices, Carolina or Auburn, and go from there. So I don't have anything, new to add beyond that. Things were looking positive for Carolina going into last weekend's visit, and he showed up to the indoor while the 7-on-7 tournament was still going on, the last one of the summer in Columbia, and seemed to be enjoying himself and all that. And so just kind of in wait and see mode at this point.
Come on, Landon, if you don't mind. We're tired of talking about it. Somebody asked me about him yesterday and what I thought. I said, I look, my insight comes from you guys. I would say Carolina feels pretty good about where they are, but at the same time, you just never know with Auburn, do you, Hale? You just never know. So, we'll see.
Yep,
we'll see. All right. let's go back to Noah Clark for a second here. How big is he?
He's in that like 6'3" range, 300 plus.
Okay.
He's a big fella. He would be the type of guy who plays more of like a nose tackle. I mean, for those who are familiar with the various techniques or shades that defensive linemen get in, it's like, whatever's playing around the center, whether it's a 0 or a 1 or whatever, nomenclature there is out there. He's those types of things that's playing like smack dab in the middle. That's kind of what I believe he profiles as if he's end up in South Carolina.
Okay, because they've got him listed at 330. I was just curious. A lot of times you see 330 pounds in high school. What does that look like? Sometimes it doesn't look great. But you mentioned that Carolina feels good about him. Mm-hmm. And you also mentioned that maybe he was kind of one of the first ones that Travian Robertson, once he got his feet wet at South Carolina, kind of circled and said, that's my guy. I want this kid here. Do you have any detail you can provide? Like, what is it about Noah Clark that Travian Robertson likes so much?
I couldn't really get into like the technical aspect of it all, but there's, like I said, like he's the big body type, the guy who's going to anchor the defensive line and in theory eat up blocks and let the guys around him make a lot of the plays. That's sort of what I would have to imagine. Beyond that, like he's got the quickness and power and all those things that you would kind of hope for in a high level defensive tackle recruit, especially one who's 300 plus pounds. I mean, if he's listed at 330 on 24/7, I think he probably carries it pretty well. I don't know what his latest weight would be, but he doesn't look sloppy by any means. I guess that's kind of what you're alluding to when you're wondering, like, what does that look like on a high schooler at 330? So, that's I don't know how well I answered your question there, but he's a big body guy, and they obviously want some big bodies on the defensive line. I mean, they've got Aiden Harris committed, and he's not small by any means, but he's in that like 265 pound area, who's going to be probably like a 3 technique, playing around the guards when he's in college. So, I've said before that I think if they get those 2 guys in the class, that's a nice little like complementary type of duo that you've got to work with there.
Yeah, the only reason I was asking, really, we had Darren Ush. We were talking to Darren a couple of weeks ago, and Darren was mentioning when they're out recruiting a lot of these kids, they're looking at them in 3 years, which is normal in college athletics. Obviously, what could this kid, what does he project as? What can he do, et cetera, et cetera. I'm just trying to help paint a picture for Travian here a little bit, because I know that the last couple of years since he's been on campus from time to time, he's taken some heat from the fan base for how he has recruited the high school kids and this, that, and the other. Doesn't matter the fact that you and everybody else under the sun has to remind people it takes time to kind of establish relationships. It's just been that he hasn't reeled in a bunch of big fish just yet. And so I was just kind of curious. This guy is obviously a big one. He's got a high ranking. Who is the stiffest competition for the Gamecocks for his services?
Yeah, and I think it's been NC State. He's, like I said, he's from Durham, and don't think he's going to venture too far from home to start his college career. And other teams that have been in the mix, been like Virginia Tech, and he was going to take a Notre Dame official visit at one point, and that didn't happen. And I'm not sure if he made it down to Florida or not, because he was planning to go down there. So obviously those places are a little further away from Durham than Columbia is.
Okay.
But then, what you mentioned, going back to the Travian Robertson aspect of it. So Travian was hired, I believe it was the May of 2023. I think that was the season. So you're coming into the middle of a recruiting cycle, the 2024 cycle. that would have been tough for anybody to go out and win a bunch of recruiting battles, especially at a position like defensive tackle where it's very competitive. Like everybody needs them, and everybody wants the guys who are good.
Mm-hmm.
So then 2025, I think that some people are kind of looking over the fact that Xavier Hardy had to go get him. Like, yeah, he committed at one point, but still had to beat some other folks to sign him. Christian Ingram, who was a pretty highly recruited guy down the stretch last winter. Georgia was in on him at one point. Kentucky had him in. Southern Cal was after him. Vanderbilt, so they had to beat some folks to get him too. So yeah, I think some of that criticism for Travian Robertson has been pretty unfair, but folks are entitled to their opinion.
Okay. PJ Dean, expand on him a little bit. Georgia, South Carolina, as you pointed out. I know maybe a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago, it seemed like because Georgia had kind of given him this idea of what he should be doing in college. Well, I don't know. Maybe that kind of puts the dogs in the pole position here. But, hell, it seems kind of like a dead heat to this point.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking with him. I don't know if it's a given one way or the other which direction he's leaning, because there's conflicting reports out there. And like I mentioned a little while ago, Tony Morrell had some good intel on that situation. But that was based off of the camp visit really last week. And he doesn't decide till Monday. So, we'll see. But it seems like it's going to be one of the two. I don't think Ohio State's really a factor with this one.
Good news for South Carolina. All right. I do need to hit a quick timeout. Can you hang around for a minute?
Sure.
When we come back, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the 7-on-7. I want to ask you about is it Sequel or Sequel? How do we say his name? Patterson.
Sequel.
We're just going to go with Sequel. I want to talk to you about that, and I want to talk to you overall about the class and some of the numbers and things like that, and try to paint a little bit of a picture here for everybody as to what's coming for the Gamecocks and where it currently is, especially based on what is going on around them with their peers. Everybody hang tight. We are brought to you by our friends at Palm Casual, palmcasual.com. I know it's hot as crap outside, but if you are going to be outside sitting outdoors, you want to be sitting on the good stuff, not the bad stuff. Remember, all this heat can kind of deteriorate the junk that you buy from Amazon, and then next year you got to buy more junk from Amazon. Why waste your money? Just go get the good stuff at Gamecock owned and operated Palm Casual. Now's the time to do it. It's summer, and then you got the fall coming up. You're going to be sitting by the fire pit. You're going to be outside watching the Gamecocks play, and then you're going to have some crisp, cool air, and your wife's going to be unhappy because the cushions are stained and you can't get the stains out. You don't want to deal with all that. Go to palmcasual.com, or visit any of their locations here in South Carolina. If you're in Florida, you can find them all over Florida. If you're in Wilmington, North Carolina, you can find them in Wilmington, North Carolina as well. More Hale when we return.
Hey, this is Cornbread Cowboy, and you're listening to the show. We'll be right back.
Hale McGranahan still with us with the BigSpur.com. Welcome back. Built by the Bardo Co. and presented by Resto Pros. By the way, I think 4th, 5th, 6th. I think it's Wednesday, July the 9th is SEC takeover day for the University of South Carolina. I'm pretty sure it is. I would venture a guess, Hale. This is a recruiting prediction style guess that they will have multiple football games from last season on that takeover. And I would even go further as to say one of them might be the game in the upstate. Would you agree or disagree with that very out on a limb prediction?
I think that's a very good prediction by you.
They
could probably spend like 30 minutes of programming time with like some of the lowlights from the LSU game, I guess you would call them, and just have across the screen this is some bullshit, and just have it playing on repeat, and that would probably be well received too.
Just all 24 hours, huh?
If we're looking for something that's not like the Clemson game or the Missouri game, the A&M game, that would play.
Yeah, I think. I wonder how many they'll have. I do miss the days when they did the takeover where they would actually play even older games. Like usually everything's like last year now. They used to have games from whenever. I kind of miss that. I got a lot of them on DVD. That makes sense.
I know what DVDs are.
Yeah, my kids don't. They saw my stack of them the other day. They said, "What are those?" I said, "They're DVDs." For what? I said, "Well, that's how I used to watch movies." Like I had 3 heads on. I was like, "We should have said how we watched movies before that."
That's what Netflix used to be.
Is there like if you could bring something back from your childhood? I feel like going to Blockbuster and picking out a movie was a very popular childhood thing for our era, Hale.
For sure. Yeah, we had probably 3 different video stores that were kind of in the rotation for us near the house. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was pretty good.
Good days.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of something else that would be a callback that people would like, but that one's hard to top.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
I know it's a good one. And then you stop and you figure out you take your date there. Oh, we're gonna get a movie. We're gonna pick out some candy. You're feeling kind of big league. You realize you've only got like $11 in your pocket, but it's $3.99 to rent a movie. And then you got to get candy. Can I get out of here with only spending $10? I don't know. At least that's how it was for me. All right. The award-winning Nana Sports chat box recruiting gurus are weighing in. They say that PJ Dean has been crystaled to Georgia. What do we need to do about that, Hale? Do we need to call PJ's family and confirm? What do we do about this?
It's just freak out and break stuff.
Well, they're doing that all over California. I don't know that they're going to allow that here in South Carolina.
Yeah, I don't know. That's That's twice. That's 2 now. That's 2 in this appearance. One more and I'm signing out.
Okay. All right. Whatever. Okay. Tilden Riley, the tight end, just real quick on him from OP, Orangeburg Prep in Orangeburg, South Carolina. It would be pretty much a shock if this young man does not end up in a Gamecock uniform, would it not?
I would think so. I mean,
okay.
In-state guy who's considering Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech in addition to South Carolina seems like a no-brainer. But hey, we'll see if he wants to go to one of those places, and more power to him.
Okay. To give Tony some credit here, he had an interesting little nugget in there this morning about Tilden Riley and his relationship with South Carolina. All right, SQL Patterson, he's down to 4. Gamecocks firmly in the mix. The wide receiver, what's the latest there?
He's taken one official visit. It was to South Carolina. He's probably going to be deciding before the end of July, and he hadn't really taken many recruiting visits before he reclassified from 27 to 26. And he'd been to South Carolina a couple of times, and it seemed like South Carolina was in really good early position when he was still a 2027 recruit. And that timeline obviously has been accelerated, and it seems like that has only improved as far as what South Carolina's standing is. So been feeling pretty good about South Carolina's position with them for a little while now. So
what
per se, I guess.
Yeah, he did reclassify. So this will be, is this this isn't 3 years, right? This would, if they get him, this would be 2 years in a row where a wideout reclassified, correct?
Yeah, and he would be the 3rd one if they get him, because they had Jordan Gidron and Donovan Murph.
Okay.
He's up from 26 to 25. They're on the team now.
Okay. Describe him.
So he's sort of body type, think like Mazeo Bennett. That's what he reminds me of from a physical standpoint, he's got some growing to do. But obviously, when he's I don't know how old he is, but let's call him 16. Let's say 16, maybe 17. Like he's still very young, and obviously very young for his grade now. So yeah, he's definitely going to get bigger and stronger and all that, and he's got the frame to carry more size. So I don't think that'll be an issue whatsoever. He's a really fun football player to watch. Like with his highlights, he does a lot of different things. He plays receiver, obviously. Does several different things as a receiver as far as running routes and making catches and how he just goes about playing the position. Like it's a fun watch, and how Indian Land uses him within their offense is also interesting to see, because he takes snaps at quarterback and he'll run between the tackles or run a zone read and get outside, or throw the ball. Sometimes they'll pitch him the ball and he'll throw. They do a lot of different things with him, and it's again, makes for interesting highlights to watch, but it also kind of tells you like, hey, they're not just trying to give him the ball because he's their best player and you want to give your best player the ball as often as possible. Like they're doing all these different things with him and allowing him to be utilized in several different ways, which kind of speaks to the point like, hey, this guy's pretty smart and knows what he's doing, and you can depend on him and he's going to make the right decision. So like, he checks a lot of those types of boxes, like intangibles, quote unquote, that you look for with any football player, a guy who's smart, dependable, and all those great things. So yeah, he's got the talent, the speed and the explosiveness and those things that are important too. But he's also just a really good competitive football player, and those things really matter. And even though he's not going to be the biggest guy on the field, that there's a lot of good things to work with him. And obviously if you're graduating a year early from high school, you're probably a pretty intelligent person, as well as an intelligent football player. So there's a lot to like with him, definitely.
I think my favorite thing is that he attends high school at Indian Land, to be honest with you, because there's a time and day where I know they list his hometown as Fort Mill, South Carolina, and that area has grown too. But there used to be nothing in Indian Land, like except for the ladder land. That was it. I think there was a stop sign or maybe a blinking light, if I remember correctly. This would be big for Indian Land High School, and I hope it works out. I think the bigger picture, though, Hale, is what's going on in this state at that position group from a talent standpoint, and then connecting that to Mike Furry at Carolina. I mean, I clearly always want to be respectful of any coach who's. I mean, Justin Stepp worked his rear end off for the Gamecocks, and he's a phenomenal wide receivers coach. But Mike Furry has been a difference maker since he's been here. And these kids, there's a lot of talent, right, Hale, at this position, or at least there has been the last couple of years. I don't know what it looks like necessarily down the road. Maybe you do. But this dude seems to find a way to be able to connect with these kids and get them into a Carolina football uniform. It's quite the turnaround from where it was just a couple short years ago from a talent and depth standpoint in that room.
Yeah, it's loaded in the 2027 class that SQL Patterson just moved out of. There are still, I think, three receivers that South Carolina has offered in that class, and there are several others who have multiple Power 4 offers. So it's been a really good run on receivers, like you said, in South Carolina these last couple of years, and it's going to be good in 27. 28 is going to be really good too. Like Carolina's already offered a 2028 in-state guy, and there's some others who are very much on the radar that way as well. So it's a good time to recruit receivers out of South Carolina, sort of in some ways like the offensive line run of prospects that there's been in the state in recent years. I mean, the obvious ones that are on the team now are like Josiah Thompson and Marquis Anderson and Cam Pringle. He's at Syracuse now, but he was obviously a big-time recruit, and there have been some others. I mean, they're the guys in this cycle, like Desmond Green. Zion Giles, Anthony Baxter. Like, so it's just, it's one of those things that I don't know that there's really any way to explain it other than it's cyclical. And I guess it helps that the state is growing in a lot of different areas. I mean, obviously the Charleston area has exploded.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow it hasn't really resulted in a bunch of high level college football prospects. Yeah, there are some down there, but it really hasn't compared to like the Fort Mill Rock Hill area, which was already really talented, as everyone knows. And even like Greenville's sort of similar to Charleston that way. So it's really weird. I'm getting off on a bit of a tangent here, but you mentioned these talented players who are in the state, and you know, Greenville and Charleston, which are the most heavily populated portions of the state, are behind others in terms of high level talent, oddly enough. So that's what makes it even more exciting, is like that it feels like there's some upside, if you will, for the state of South Carolina when it comes to college prospects, because the biggest, most heavily densely populated areas aren't necessarily the most densely populated with college football talent.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, it's been neat to see this. So Carolina will try to keep it rolling with this kid here in the near future. All right, big picture here, Hale. Big picture on the recruiting front. So if you just go, like, if there's somebody watching or listening right now who maybe doesn't follow it very closely, and they say, well, I'm going to go to the Big Spur and let me go check out the numbers. The number that they're going to see, the first number that they're going to see, I should say, is not one that you're going to be very impressed with. If you go strictly by the rankings right now, Carolina is 62nd in the country in recruiting. But we all know, if you're been following along or if you're covering this, it doesn't feel like that at all. It's just the fact that they've only got 8 players that are in the boat right now, and plenty that are set to make decisions, and a lot of those will make decisions for the Gamecocks, and it will bump them up drastically. The number that I've been focused on is the quality of player that South Carolina is signing, Hale. And right now, if you go by that average rating for the players that are in all these classes, the Gamecocks have the 10th best class in college football. So I don't know if they're being selective or not. I mean, we know they're being selective, but it's just kind of where they are in the process with most of their prospects not making decisions yet. But the ones that they are getting are really, really good football players. How would you describe this class so far from a talent standpoint? And how do you compare it to the previous classes under Shane Beamer, follow me here, under the umbrella, under the premise that he's now had multiple years to develop relationships with this group of players?
I think it's pretty on par with where they've been these last couple years. It's hard to try to think about it as far as how it compares historically and what it could be down the road, as far as like the ceiling on where they could be ranked when this class is done, because of the portal and the presence that is and how that affects things. Like Carolina, I'm sure if they wanted to, they could have twice as many commits right now as they do. And if they had 16 guys in the class, I don't know exactly where they would be, but they would be well within the top 25, I would imagine, like comfortably.
Easily.
Yeah. But they're not looking to do that. They're not going to reach. And this has been the case for pretty much the entirety of Beamer's tenure here, is they're not going to reach on high school recruits and just go fill up spots because they have spots to fill up, because they have the portal to use down the road. And they're not in the business of just going and getting as many guys as possible and resetting the roster every year via cutting guys. Like that's not how they're going to operate. And some places do it that way, and that's their prerogative. But that's not how Shane Beamer wants to operate, and it seems to be working out pretty well. So to try to answer your question, I think that this level of talent is pretty close to what it's been in recent years. And the biggest thing when we're trying to figure out how highly ranked it can be at the end of the day, to me, it starts with one position, and that's quarterback. So if you have a very highly rated quarterback in your class, you're going to give yourself a chance to have, let's call it a top 15 type of class. Mm-hmm. So if they do get Landon Duckworth and get him committed again and sign him, I would think that minimum they're going to be in the top 15 by the time it's all said and done. And that's not even, going down the list at other positions and trying to count it up that way. It's just like a general formula, I guess, if you will, that I've got my own personal algorithm that you can't have a really highly rated class without a really highly rated quarterback.
Right.
Because right or wrong, there are usually a lot of highly rated quarterbacks out there, and there are probably too many. Not to go on a tangent, but there are probably too many of those guys year to year. So if you don't have a highly rated guy, then you're going to be behind a lot of folks who have highly rated quarterbacks. So it starts there. As folks have talked about on the message board on the Big Spur this morning, the conversation I've chimed into over there, it helps when the state of South Carolina and the state of North Carolina has a lot of really highly rated blue chip guys, which this class does, 2027 class as well. But for this conversation, the 26 class, they've got a fighting chance to be, again, once it's all said and done, they get Duckworth, they're able to close on some of these in-state guys and close on some of the guys up in North Carolina. There's a pretty good ceiling there. So as we sit here now, it would be tough for me to predict how high the number will end up. I think it'll definitely be within the top 25. Whether it'll be better than 15, who's to say? I don't know, because there's going to be some schools out there, some teams out there that probably have a lot more commitments than South Carolina ends up with at the high school level. And sometimes when you're dealing with that from a ranking standpoint, just having more bodies is going to account for a lot and might kind of penalize you, so to speak, within the recruiting rankings. So right or wrong, that's how it is for 24/7. But if you're looking at the average player rating, that usually helps provide a little more context.
Yeah, 100%. You're spot on about that. I just think it's been kind of remarkable in this spot they put themselves in, Hale. And, again, so much credit goes to Shane Beamer. Like, I know that he's had to make coaching changes and that coaches have left for other jobs and things of that nature. But one of the things that he's big on, as he's very big on relationships. And he understands not just relationships with himself and with his coaches, but with his coaches, and that's how you can get some of these guys. That's how you can go out. You got to win football games. You got to be good, obviously. But if you want to go compete with Georgia on an annual basis and compete with Florida and compete with Alabama or Auburn or whoever it may be that surrounds you on an annual basis for players, you gotta make sure that these guys, like, you can't go head to head with them all the time on the results or on the history and tradition of your program. So you're gonna have to go head to head on something else, and that something else is, would you feel better about being here with us or being there with them? And they have more than succeeded on that. Matter of fact, when it comes in state, like, I was just looking at the numbers. I had peeked at them this morning and never finished all my homework on it, but just looking at the numbers as far as recruiting kids in the state of South Carolina, period, the end, versus that team in the upstate, they're whipping their rear ends. I mean, Carolina is smoking the Tigers when it comes to getting the good players in this state. Does that mean they're going to beat them every year or they're going to be the better team? I don't think that's necessarily always what it means. But it does mean something to South Carolina. Historically, they don't win at the level they want to win at without the best players from South Carolina. Let me make one other quick point here. If you got any response to any of this, you can have the floor. It's not always about the rankings. I'm just going to give one. Like, I don't look at a kid and go, oh, they got the 17th best player in the state of South Carolina. That's okay, cool. In 2023, by the final top 247 rankings. The 7th best player in the state of South Carolina was a kid named Lenoris Sellers. And right now, he could be considered potentially the best quarterback in college football. Top 5, to be fair, but there's some people out there who believe that he could be the first or second quarterback taken in the draft next year, Hale. And by the rankings, and I know you didn't do this, but like by the rankings.
I definitely did not because I was an advocate.
Yeah, I know you were. Well, everybody at the Big Spur was. Yeah. I mean, you were, and JC and Tony, everybody's like, what are we doing here? To name the kids in front of him, Monroe Freeling, who's at Georgia, Xavier McLeod. I don't even know if Xavier McLeod still plays football. Maybe he does.
He does.
Marquis Anderson, who's here at South Carolina, Jordan Knox, the offensive lineman who went to Northwestern, Montague Rames, and just in front of him is Brandon Cisse, who's now back in Columbia as a corner but went to NC State. But Lenoris Sellers was behind all of them. It's, you just never know. But South Carolina, the last few years, my point is they seemingly have gotten almost all of the best players from this state. That, to me, is really just a phenomenal deal for this program from where they were to where they are now.
Yeah, I'm biting my tongue.
On the Sellers thing, you mean?
Just his rank, yes, the ranking rating.
Oh, yeah. When he
just unload on it, Hale. Just let it all go. Just employer be damned.
Yeah. Those folks who do that stuff, rankings and ratings. I don't want anything to do with it as like what I'm waking up and thinking about for work each morning. That is an unenviable, thankless
100%.
Yeah,
right. You can't please everybody, and you're going to piss off most people. So
it's like being an HOA president. Like nobody wants that job.
Oh God, yeah, that's probably worse than being an HOA president. If we're being real here.
Yeah, my son should have been. Lenoris Sellers was the 34th ranked quarterback in the country.
I didn't watch all 33 quarterbacks ranked ahead of him, and that's how I always, when I do talk to folks within the network about rankings and ratings, I make it clear whenever I ask for my opinion. I make it clear, like I don't know, what the other guys in this class look like aside from the ones who South Carolina's offered and recruited, but man. My biggest regret with Lenoris, is not having the conviction to tell our guys that I thought he might be a 5-star. I crossed my mind, but I was like, that's just, I can't say that. Like, because, going back to what I was saying earlier, I think there are too many 4-star quarterbacks every year and too many 4-stars just really at every position, but especially quarterback, because it's such a low hit rate, and guys, only one guy can play, so that it's really, really difficult. I don't know. It goes back to what I was saying a second ago. Like it's just such a tough thing and unenviable task. But good God, man, if you just watch that guy's highlights from the 4 or 5 games he played as a junior, and it got even better when he played in 15 as a senior. Yeah.
For what it's worth, it was a hell of a class. We're going to see a lot of these guys this year. Arch Manning was number 1. Right. Ian Maliava was 2. Dante Moore was 3, who went to UCLA. Jackson Arnold was 4. Malachi Nelson, who went to Southern Cal, was 5. Your boy Jaden Rashada was 6. How many schools has he played for? Aiden Childs was 7th. He went to Oregon State. Austin Mack, who went to Washington, was 8. Avery Johnson? Oh, yeah. Avery Johnson, who went to, good player. Number 9, went to Kansas State. Chris Vizina, who's the backup to Klubnik at Clemson.
Yeah, so that's where I started having, like, what are we doing here type thoughts, because I do tend to pay attention to guys Clemson gets, and I remember looking at him and being like, why are they doing that?
Yeah. You know who was number 16?
Who's number 16? I feel like I should, based on the way you asked it.
You should. Dylan Lonergan.
Well,
And
I'm interested to see how he does at BC now that he's got a shot.
I am too. Yeah, I am too. And I'm not trying to say that disrespectfully. You just wonder, because did he decommit? Did he commit and then decommit? Or he never committed?
He never committed, no.
He never committed. But they were close with him. So you just wonder, where would Carolina football be? Again, I'm not being disrespectful to Dylan Lonergan and his family at all. But where would they be if he ended up being the quarterback in that class? And Lenore Sellers wasn't.
Yeah, that's a very, very much a sliding doors moment for South Carolina football. But he's a talented athlete who's got to get on and
good baseball player.
Yeah, there's a reason why Alabama took him after they already had a quarterback committed. Like, he's really good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know who any of these guys are behind Sellers, except for number 35, Austin Simmons, who went to Ole Miss from Moorhaven, Florida. And we'll see him this year when they get to Oxford. But, I don't even know who any of these other guys are around him. Lenore Sellers, 34th. Crazy.
Yeah, my big problem with him, his ranking was those state numbers that you rattled off. And there were some really good linemen in that class, but there was definitely one Lenore should not have been behind.
Yeah, there's no doubt. No doubt. All right, Hale, any parting shots, anything we missed on the recruiting front today?
No, but on the non-recruiting front, the actual football games being played front, I'm starting to look at those season win totals. And I've got my eye on some.
Oh.
I feel like those ACC totals are usually fairly easy to predict. Because the haves and have-nots in that league are pretty distinct year to year.
There's one have. Who are the other halves?
There's one half, two also rans, and then a line of demarcation.
Relative to the league, you're saying?
Relative to the league, yes. Relative to the league.
I think, if you were to give like 5 major college football predictions this year and you put number 1, Clemson would win the ACC, I don't think anybody disagree with you. I think they'd be like Captain Obvious. If they don't, I don't know. Clemson could be in the same spot they were in last year. I think they're a better team than they were last year. But they could be in the exact same spot they were in last year, Hale. They could lose the opener and lose the closer. They could be bookending their season with SEC losses and finish with 11 wins and
an AQ to the playoff.
Yeah, AQ to the playoff. It wouldn't have to be a top 4 seed necessarily because they've changed the seeding, but they'd be in there.
Yeah. The only question is who's going to play them in the championship game.
It's probably going to be Florida State based on their new quarterback because he tore up the ACC last year by his damn self.
He's on the precipice of doing it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you see that? He said, I tore up the ACC by my damn self. He didn't have anybody else that played with him at Boston College. They put one guy on the field.
Yeah, that's impressive. He 11-on-1.
Never seen anything like it.
No. Not on the football field.
No. They got better when he got benched. It's crazy. All right, man. Well, we'll be out for the next couple of weeks, and so we know when we come back. Are you planning to go to media days or no?
I am, yeah.
Okay, so we know that Monday you'll be in Hotlanta, and then I'm assuming probably back on Tuesday. You're not going to stay for the whole thing, are you?
No.
Why not? You don't want to stick around and talk to Hugh Freeze at the end of the week?
Well, when you put it like that, maybe I should.
Yeah. Over under. Next time you see Shane, I'm going to send this to either him or Fink. Over under 17.5 minutes on his opening statement.
Oh. I might be able to get an answer for you before you get the answer.
Yeah. I'm gonna ask Steve what he thinks.
All right.
I'll ask Shane. Shane, it's kind of a running joke now. Hale, thank you so much, man. Happy 4th of July. I know that's next week, but we won't see you before then. So happy 4th of July. Thanks for everything that you do in covering the University of South Carolina's football program and more. Sometimes you get pulled into hoops and other things like that, but you do a wonderful job, and we hope the young buck enjoys the fireworks this time of year, my man.
I appreciate you guys and hope you all enjoy your time off.
Thanks, bud. See you soon. There you go. Hale McGranahan with the BigSpur.com.